Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be taking a look at the 12 motorcycles only foolish buyers choose in 2026. Number 12, Harley-Davidson Sportster S. Buying a Harley-Davidson Sportster S in 2026 requires ignoring some fairly obvious red flags. While the motorcycle delivers strong performance and aggressive styling, it struggles to make a convincing case when compared against the many alternatives available at the same price. The biggest problem is positioning. Harley-Davidson tried to create a motorcycle that would attract both traditional cruiser riders and younger performance-focused buyers. Instead, the Sportster S often ends up satisfying neither group completely. Longtime Harley fans frequently prefer more traditional models, while performance riders can find motorcycles with greater versatility and better value elsewhere. To be fair, the motorcycle is fast. The Revolution Max engine gives it impressive acceleration and far more performance than older Sportsters ever offered. But speed alone isn't enough to justify a purchase, especially when buyers are spending this much money. The real issue appears once shoppers begin comparing what their money can buy. Competing motorcycles often provide better comfort, longer range, greater practicality, or more features while costing similar amounts. That's a difficult disadvantage to overcome. The Harley-Davidson Sportster S lands on this list because it asks buyers to make too many compromises in exchange for styling and performance when several stronger all-around motorcycles are available for the same money in 2026. Number 11, Indian Chief. Buying an Indian Chief in 2026 is one of those decisions that sounds better in the showroom than it does after comparing the alternatives. The motorcycle certainly looks the part, carrying classic American cruiser styling and plenty of brand heritage, but that doesn't automatically make it a smart purchase. The biggest issue is value. The Chief sits in a price range where buyers have access to numerous cruisers that offer either more features, more comfort, or a more complete ownership experience. Once shoppers start comparing specifications, equipment, and real-world usability, the Chief often becomes difficult to justify. The motorcycle itself isn't bad. Its V-twin engine delivers the relaxed cruising experience most buyers expect, and the styling attracts plenty of attention. The problem is that many of its strengths can also be found on competing motorcycles that cost less or offer more for the money. Another concern is that Indian's own lineup creates strong competition. Buyers frequently discover that spending a little more opens the door to motorcycles with greater touring capability, better features, or stronger long-distance comfort. The real mistake buyers make is falling in love with the image before comparing the alternatives. Once that comparison happens, many discover they can get more motorcycle for the same money almost everywhere else. Number 10, Yamaha V-Max. Few motorcycles have benefited more from their reputation than the Yamaha V-Max. Mention the name and riders immediately think of massive power, brutal acceleration, and legendary status. The problem is that reputation is doing most of the heavy lifting in 2026. The V-Max was built for an era when raw horsepower could outweigh almost every other consideration. Today's buyers expect much more. They want performance, comfort, technology, practicality, and value all wrapped into one motorcycle. That's where the V-Max starts falling behind. Its massive V4 engine remains the centerpiece of the experience, delivering the kind of acceleration that made the motorcycle famous. Unfortunately, that performance comes packaged with significant compromises. The V-Max is heavy, thirsty, expensive to own, and less versatile than many motorcycles costing similar money. Once shoppers begin comparing alternatives, the value proposition becomes difficult to defend. Modern sport tourers, performance nakeds, and even some adventure motorcycles offer better comfort, better technology, and far greater everyday usability while still delivering plenty of excitement. The Yamaha V-Max lands on this list because it remains an icon of motorcycle history. But icons don't always make the smartest purchases in 2026. Number 9, Harley-Davidson Street 500. The Harley-Davidson Street 500 is one of the clearest examples of a motorcycle that failed to live up to its mission. Harley designed it to attract new riders, expand the brand's reach, and create an affordable entry point into the Harley-Davidson lineup. Instead, many riders now view it as one of the least desirable motorcycles the company has produced in recent years. Part of the problem comes from expectations. When people buy a Harley-Davidson, they usually expect a certain look, sound, and riding experience. The Street 500 delivered something very different. While that may have helped make it more approachable for beginners, it also stripped away many of the qualities that attract people to the brand in the first place. The situation becomes even worse when buyers start looking at the used market. For similar money, it's often possible to find larger, more desirable motorcycles that provide a far better overall experience than the Street 500. Many riders were drawn to the Harley badge and assumed they were getting a bargain. What they often discovered was a motorcycle that felt more like a compromise than a true Harley-Davidson. The Street 500 lands on this list because buyers are paying for a famous logo while ignoring the fact that there are significantly better motorcycles available for the same money in 2026. Number 8. Indian Challenger. At first glance, the Indian Challenger seems like an easy motorcycle to recommend. It offers strong performance, premium touring features, and enough road presence to compete with almost anything in the bagger segment. The problem is that buyers shopping in this category are spending serious money, which means expectations become much higher. Riders in this segment are also looking at resale value, dealer support, aftermarket options, long-term ownership costs, and brand loyalty. That's where the Challenger starts facing tougher questions. The motorcycle also competes in one of the most established segments in motorcycling. Many buyers have spent years riding the same brands and are reluctant to switch, especially when the purchase price climbs this high. What makes the Challenger difficult to justify is not a lack of quality. It's the reality that buyers are paying premium money in a segment where several competitors offer a stronger ownership experience beyond the motorcycle itself. When the alternatives bring comparable performance along with stronger resale value, broader dealer networks, and decades of customer loyalty, the Indian Challenger becomes a much harder purchase to defend in 2026. Number 7. Harley-Davidson Nightster. Harley-Davidson launched the Nightster with the goal of attracting riders who normally wouldn't consider buying a Harley. It was supposed to appeal to younger customers, offer a more modern riding experience, and help the company compete in a segment filled with strong alternatives. The problem is that the Nightster never fully established a clear identity of its own. Many riders looking at the Nightster quickly find themselves comparing it against motorcycles from Japanese and European manufacturers that have spent years dominating this category. Those competitors often offer similar performance, strong reliability records, lower ownership costs, and a reputation for delivering excellent value. That makes the Nightster a difficult motorcycle to justify before the buying process has even finished. The situation becomes even more complicated inside Harley-Davidson dealerships. Traditional Harley buyers often gravitate toward larger cruisers that better represent the brand's heritage, while newer riders frequently discover competing motorcycles that offer more features or greater practicality for similar money. As a result, the Nightster ends up caught between two very different groups of customers. The Harley-Davidson Nightster may succeed at looking modern, but it struggles to give buyers a compelling reason to choose it over the many established alternatives surrounding it, which is exactly why it becomes such a questionable purchase in 2026. Number 6. Kawasaki Eliminator. The Kawasaki Eliminator entered the market with a lot of promise. Kawasaki positioned it as a lightweight cruiser that would appeal to newer riders while still offering enough style and comfort to attract experienced motorcyclists. The problem is that the motorcycle struggles to stand out in a segment where buyers already have plenty of proven options. Many riders looking at the Eliminator quickly realize that its biggest selling point is also its biggest weakness. By trying to appeal to such a wide range of customers, the motorcycle ends up feeling like a compromise rather than a category leader. It does several things reasonably well, but it doesn't give buyers a strong reason to choose it over the competition. The situation becomes even more challenging when shoppers start comparing motorcycles at similar price points. Buyers can find alternatives that offer more character, stronger performance, greater comfort, or a more established reputation within the cruiser segment. That leaves the Eliminator fighting for attention in a market where first impressions matter a great deal. The Kawasaki Eliminator may succeed at being approachable, but it struggles to provide the kind of memorable ownership experience that encourages buyers to choose it over the many stronger alternatives available today, which is exactly why it becomes such a difficult motorcycle to recommend in 2026. Number 5. Triumph Rocket 3. The Triumph Rocket 3 is one of those motorcycles that generates excitement the moment people see it. Its massive size, aggressive styling, and incredible performance figures make it easy to admire. The problem is that admiration and ownership are two very different things, especially when buyers start looking at how they will actually use the motorcycle. Many riders become fascinated by the Rocket 3 because of what it represents. It offers more power than most people will ever need and delivers a level of performance that few cruisers can match. The issue is that very few owners spend their time taking advantage of those capabilities, which means they are often paying for performance that remains largely unused. The challenges don't stop there. The motorcycle's size, weight, and premium price make it harder to justify than many alternatives. Buyers spending this kind of money often want a motorcycle that can excel across a wider range of situations, while the Rocket 3 feels heavily focused on making a statement rather than serving as an everyday machine. The Triumph Rocket 3 succeeds at grabbing attention and dominating conversations, but once the excitement fades and practical considerations enter the picture, many buyers discover there are far more sensible ways to spend their money, which is exactly why it becomes such a questionable purchase in 2026. Number 4. Indian Scout Bobber. The Indian Scout Bobber has become one of the most recognizable motorcycles in Indian's lineup. Its stripped-down styling, low stance, and custom-inspired appearance attract plenty of attention, which helps explain why so many riders are drawn to it at first glance. The problem is that looking good and making sense as a purchase are not always the same thing. Many buyers fall for the Scout Bobber because of its appearance long before they think about how they will actually use it. The motorcycle is clearly designed with style as a priority, and while there is nothing wrong with that, the focus on aesthetics creates compromises that become more noticeable over time. The riding position, limited comfort, and reduced practicality may not seem important during a short test ride, but they can become much harder to ignore once the motorcycle becomes part of everyday life. Buyers often discover that several alternatives provide a far better balance between style, comfort, and usability without sacrificing their visual appeal. The Indian Scout Bobber does an excellent job of selling a lifestyle, but many riders eventually realize they prioritized appearance over practicality, which is exactly why it becomes such a difficult motorcycle to justify in 2026. Number 3. Harley-Davidson Pan America. The Harley-Davidson Pan America arrived with enormous expectations. It represented Harley's attempt to enter the booming adventure motorcycle segment and compete against brands that had spent decades building their reputations in this category. The problem is that entering a market and dominating a market are two completely different challenges. Many riders were surprised by how capable the Pan America turned out to be. Reviews were generally positive. The motorcycle offered modern technology, and it proved that Harley-Davidson could build something far different from its traditional cruisers. Unfortunately, building a competent adventure bike is only part of what buyers are looking for. Adventure riders tend to be some of the most brand-loyal customers in motorcycling. Many have spent years riding motorcycles from manufacturers with long histories in the segment, making it difficult for newcomers to earn the same level of trust. As a result, the Pan America often finds itself competing against brands that already have a massive advantage before buyers even walk into a dealership. The Harley-Davidson Pan America may have exceeded expectations in terms of capability, but it still faces the difficult task of convincing buyers to abandon proven alternatives. And that becomes a tough argument to make when so many established competitors already dominate the adventure motorcycle market in 2026. Number 2, BMW R18. The BMW R18 is a motorcycle that attracts attention almost everywhere it goes. Its massive boxer engine, classic styling, and unmistakable presence make it one of the most distinctive cruisers on the road today. The problem is that being distinctive doesn't automatically make it a smart purchase, especially when buyers start looking beyond the initial wow factor. Many riders are drawn to the R18 because it feels different from nearly everything else in the cruiser market. BMW deliberately leaned into heritage, creating a motorcycle that celebrates the company's history while standing apart from the American cruisers that dominate this category. The challenge begins when buyers compare the R18 against other motorcycles in the same general price range. Some competitors offer greater comfort, stronger touring capability, larger aftermarket support, or a more established ownership culture. Those advantages may not seem important at first, but they become much more significant after years of ownership. The BMW R18 succeeds at creating an emotional connection with buyers who appreciate its unique character. But emotions can fade much faster than monthly payments. And that's where many owners begin questioning whether the motorcycle truly delivered enough value to justify the investment in 2026. Number 1, Triumph Bonneville Bobber. The Triumph Bonneville Bobber is one of the best-looking motorcycles on sale today. Its minimalist styling, vintage character, and custom-built appearance give it an undeniable appeal that few motorcycles can match. The problem is that many buyers become so focused on how the Bobber looks that they forget to consider what living with it is actually like. From a distance, the motorcycle seems like the perfect combination of classic design and modern engineering. That's exactly what draws people in. Unfortunately, the very features that make the Bobber visually appealing are often the same features that limit its practicality in everyday use. The single-seat layout immediately reduces versatility, while the riding position and limited comfort become more noticeable as rides get longer. Many owners discover that the motorcycle excels at short rides and attracting attention, but it becomes less convincing when asked to handle the wider range of situations that most riders encounter throughout the year. The challenge is that buyers often fall in love with the image first and evaluate the compromises later. By the time those compromises become obvious, the purchase has already been made. The Triumph Bonneville Bobber does an outstanding job of selling a dream, but for many riders that dream comes with more compromises than expected, making it one of the easiest motorcycles to regret buying in 2026. And with this, we have reached the end of this video. Make sure to like it and subscribe the channel for future upcoming videos.